Hey everybody, this is Zachary Jeans. Let's keep walking through the Bible. So today is day 377 and we are walking through the Bible. So we are in the book of Numbers and we are working our way obviously through the Pentateuch. There's a lot of laws that we don't keep today that were established for the people of Israel as they're moving through the desert into the promised land and then through their time as a nation. And these covenants were received, abided in, some never seemingly abided in, and the Lord many times noted that they broke covenant with him. And God provided his perfect and better covenant through Jesus Christ, through his Messiah, his high priest for us and his sacrifice for us in Jesus. So all of these things point to a holiness and a rightness with God, made right by God, through God, for us, because people beat up these followers of God and their poor following of God back in the day, and we all fail, but the pressure that they were under and just the wandering eye to other gods, other easier systems of worship, things that offered more tactile moment by moment blessings, all kinds of things that led people to turn away from God and his word back in the day. And we're going to look at two kinds of law. Law regarding adultery and jealousy, something that is not practiced, and nor was it practiced basically, as far as we can see, throughout most of the Old Testament. Like there's some allusions to it at one point, but in general, people didn't practice this. And there were some pitfalls to it when early America tried to employ a version of this around witches, in my opinion. We'll get to that. The other is we're going to look at the Nazirite vow. This is the vow of consecration or setting apart. The idea is that someone is set apart, and John the Baptist essentially taking the Nazirite vow, no wine, no eating of this and that, just living off the land and setting himself apart for God, for a purpose. So we'll look at that as well. Before we get going, just say thank you. Thank you for your love. Thank you for likes. Appreciate it. If you share, I appreciate that. And more than anything, pray. I appreciate your prayers. Prayers for me, prayers for those who take time to get in this word every day. So why don't we stop and do that? Let's just say a simple prayer. We're going to just ask God to speak to us, okay? So just take a minute, take a deep breath, get your head right. Okay. Heavenly Father, Lord Jesus, please speak to me. I love you. It's in your name we pray, Jesus. Amen. All right. A good cup of coffee is nice. All right. So we are on day 377 here, and we are in Numbers chapters 5 and 6. So if you want to open up your Bible and go ahead and hit pause and go ahead and skim those chapters or read through them. Take as much time as you want. That's the great thing about this message is you can just go, boop, stop, take some time, read, even stop and pray a little bit longer if you feel that that is something you need to do. And then welcome back. So let's go ahead and pick it up in verse 1. We won't read every line of chapter 5. It gets a little redundant, but and for good point, like they didn't want to screw this one up. There's some well, we'll see. Chapter 5, verse 1. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, command the people of Israel that they put out of the camp everyone who is leprous, right? Any number of skin issues, or has a discharge, and everyone who is unclean through the contact with the dead. Now, we've read a whole bunch of the laws around these issues, okay? You shall put out both male and female, putting them outside the camp, that they may not defile their camp, in the midst of which I dwell. And the people of Israel did so, and put them outside of the camp, as the Lord said to Moses. So the people of Israel did. Just a note on this. If you're having health issues, you can feel like you have there's all kinds of issues. You know if you have health issues. If you've gone through moments of guilt, that you've somehow let down yourself or your family, you've let down other people that are depending on you. Even if it's something, that's not life-threatening, but definitely socially awkward. If you're wrestling with eczema or a form of lupus, or think of something like maybe you're just having a form of colitis, where your digestive system isn't rocking and rolling the way it should. And so it makes everything awkward when you're like, I can't go, or if you go, you have to leave. There's all kinds of health issues, right? Which maybe don't come to the level of something horrifically hard to go through, like ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. One of the guys I love from the radio had to leave the radio, and I didn't know why he left. He was on the Blazers broadcast, and I prayed for him, and I start asking around on social media, where'd he go? Where's Mike? No one would answer. And I was like, man, something's not right here. Couldn't find any news stories. Well, it turns out, and he just shared, and so it's all public, he, as a young man, has come down with ALS, and this impacts your nervous system, your ability basically to start operating the functionalities of your motor system, including swallowing, things like that. It's super scary. So say a prayer for Mike Lynch. But the point about this passage in the camp and the uncleanliness, the discharges, the being around the dead, and so forth and so on, leprous skin, Jesus came, and all of these laws, again, all of these covenants are no longer in operation today. These covenants were violated multiple times by the people of Israel. God said that they violated their covenant with him, and he provided his covenant with them through the Messiah, through Jesus Christ. And but there are principles here, and the principle being that when you're put away from the camp, that is away from family, friends, your work, organization, there's all kinds of negative feelings that come, right? And in this case, it was for the safety and security of the whole body, as they were a people group moving around and into this promised land, and they didn't want some of this stuff spreading around, right? We need to make amends with folks. We know that we can be around each other with these health issues, and we need to make amends, okay? People separated each other during the COVID thing, and I was not a believer in a lot of the policies. In fact, all of the policies I researched, I found medical evidence that they were all BS. They were lies. They were politically motivated, and some of you held on to them, and God bless you, I love you, but they were straight up motivated, okay, for making money, in very likely some parts of the system being fairly nefarious towards folks. And so there's a lot of hurt and anger between those who abided in those things during the COVID lockdowns and those that chose not to and received a lot of ridicule. We're coming into an era where all the evidence is coming out that this stuff was bad news, including those shots don't seem to have good impacts, okay? And so there's going to be a lot of hurt towards the medical system and towards people who said, I told you so. And I think we all need to have love and grace for one another, okay? So these issues, which seem pretty antiquated, right? Putting someone outside of the camp, making distance, taking care of this and that, and then Jesus saying, hey, I'm going to heal you from your leprosy, and we're not going to consider you unclean when you come back, and We're not going to ostracize you if you got healed. All of this stuff applies today, in that people go through stuff and they bear a lot of weight, a lot of guilt, a lot of distance from family and friends, and we need to bring each other together in love. Okay. All right. So a confession about restitution here. Verse 8. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the people of Israel. When a man commits any of the sins that people commit by breaking faith with the Lord, and that person realizes his guilt, he shall confess his sin that he has committed, and he shall make full restitution for his wrong, adding a fifth to it, and giving it to him to whom he did the wrong. I think this is so important. This is a principle which follows through today as well. Don't have to keep this exact law. But look, if you do wrong and you realize it, you need to fess up. Don't just say, I'm sorry in some generalized way, so that the other person can say, oh, okay, well, I forgive you. Well, what are you sorry for? Own it. Be specific. None of this wiggling out. Okay? Name it. Say it. Own it. Then if somebody brings it back up down the line, they have every right to bring it up down the line. You can't just go, well, I already said I was sorry. God's already dealt with me on that. Oh, come on. Everyone has the right, if they've been harmed or hurt by your lie or your, whatever error you've made in judgment towards them, you don't get to decide when they're okay. Now, if we're talking about something that's going on decades and decades and you can't get over it, hey, that's on you, right? But look, if somebody hasn't had the opportunity to make things right, you got to give them the chance, just because you think that you've done your, oh, I'm sorry stuff, right? And you don't have to say maybe pay a fifth like they're doing here. This is very specific to the people of Israel during this time. But there is a principle there. Don't just do enough. Go over and above to make things right. Okay. Let's go ahead and drop on down here to verse 11. Now, this whole section here, we won't read every verse here. I want you to read every verse, but for time's sake, we won't. This is a test for adultery. And as we'll read, it seems pretty mystical, right? The Lord spoke, verse 11, to Moses, saying, speak to the people of Israel. If any man goes astray and breaks faith with him, if a man lies with her sexually, or rather, if any man's wife goes astray and breaks faith with him, if a man lies with her sexually and it's hidden from his eyes of his husband, or rather, hidden from the eyes of her husband, and she is undetected, though she has defiled herself, and there is no witness against her, since she was not taken in the act, and if the spirit of jealousy comes over him, and he is jealous of his wife who has defiled herself, or if the spirit of jealousy comes over him, and he is jealous of his wife, though she has not defiled herself. In other words, if a guy gets jealous and is suspecting that his wife's sleeping around on him, whether she did it or didn't do it, then the man shall bring his wife to the priest and bring her the offering required for her, 1/10 of an ephah, barley flour. He shall pour no oil on it, put no frankincense on it, for it is grain offering of jealousy, grain offering of remembrance, bringing iniquity to remembrance. So the priest shall bring her before the Lord. He's going to do this offering, and there's going to be some water that he's going to make her drink, and if it's called the water of bitterness. And like, if there's jealousy there, then, there's going to be a physical response to drinking this water. You remember when Moses ground everything up when he came down off the mountain? They'd made that little golden calf and all this stuff, and he broke the tablets at the bottom, and he ground up the idol and some other things that they had there, and he made him drink the water. It was bitter. Similar kind of sort of like, hey, you're going to drink your guilt here. And if you're guilty, it's going to have a negative impact. We're going to see that your stomach's going to swell up, your leg's going to waste away. And the priest's going to write the curses down in a book. and so on and so forth. So this principle of some sort of mystical private investigation between the man, the woman, and the priest on issues of faithfulness in the bedroom, we don't practice that today, nor should we. So I want you to get this out of your head that you're going to somehow mix up a cup of baking soda or something and make your wife or husband drink it, find out if they have indigestion, and that, you know, if they do, then they've cheated on you, and if they don't, then, you know, then they're good. This is not what we do today. And to that end, you really don't see this practice, this particular thing practiced and recorded in the Bible. Even in issues around adultery with King David and, or rather, excuse me, King David and Bathsheba with the eventual birth of Solomon, through her, God used the prophet in a fairly mystical way to let him know that he'd done wrong. So God can get things around to you in words of wisdom and prophetic stuff, and, you know, he can alert you to things. But this isn't something to go around wielding like a lightsaber and chopping off stuff in an unskilled way. This is a very sharp, powerful weapon here, using spirituality to determine guilt. Okay. And you'll notice this isn't for you to do, right? This was for a guy and a priest that's rightly aligned with the Lord, okay? And him abiding in his relationship with God for the people of Israel to determine these things. We don't have that. We don't have that. There's no principle here for you to be the high priest, again, to make your spouse drink something and go, you know, you aren't looking so good. I think you cheated. Or, you know, oh, looks like you went ahead and drank that bitter cup and you're all right. So I think we're good. We don't have that. And so just a word on jealousy. Jealousy is your fear of your trust being broken. It's your emotional response to your fears of things being broken. Now, in the best possible sense, this form of jealousy here is that you have an intuition, an inclination in your spirit that something's not right. And that's fair. That's fair. But the kind of jealousy that I think we talk about in popular culture today is a kind of jealousy that ends up on, you know, the show's not on anymore, but Keeping Up with the Kardashians, or, you know, any of these, you know, reality TV shows on Oxygen or whatever. This sort of betrayal and, you know, love and then betrayal. And, you know, you need to have a good sense about whether things are right or not. But if you're just a person that is looking behind every corner for something to be wrong, guess what you're going to find? You're going to find that you are probably more the problem than anything. And eventually, yeah, people screw up, you know. And then when they screw up, are you going to have a spirit of forgiveness and mercy? Or, you know, even if you're not going to forgive them in the sense of like, hey, we're going to still get back together, you need to forgive them in your heart and move on. There's no reason to commit violence in a relationship. Like, we live in a society where you can move on. You can be hurt. You can be betrayed. I've had relationships that didn't go right. I didn't do right in some of my relationships as a young man. You know, saying they're going to keep going and they didn't. So I know, I mean, many of you maybe are lucky to have only had one relationship and it's gone well. But if you've been betrayed or hurt, you should know, like, look, you don't have to be physically or even really violently, verbally harmful to the other person. You really can get things right with God, address the issue with them, and to express your hurt. And guess what? You can move on. You're like, well, there's all these financial reasons why I can't. If you look hard enough, there's a way to get out of that situation. There really is. You got to apply the effort and get out. Get some distance. Now, there are people in my life over the years, a godly woman who I know, her husband didn't walk the walk for a minute there, and she knew about it. He knew she knew about it, and at the time, I wanted her to know that the Bible's pretty clear. She has every right to not receive him back. And she understood that. But she believed that he was just in this, crisis of midlife, and things went sideways. And she went ahead and left the door open for him and was incredibly forgiving. And those people I've checked in, I don't know them personally anymore, or really that much at all. But, I catch wind here and there, and they're doing great. They're doing great. Marriage is healed by all external appearances, and things are great. So there can be healing and forgiveness even in the midst of an adulterous situation in marriage. Okay. All right, let's drop down to the Nazirite Vow. Chapter 6, verse 1. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the people of Israel, say to them, when either a man or a woman makes a special vow, the vow of the Nazirite, to separate himself to the Lord, he shall separate himself from wine and strong drink. He shall drink no vinegar made from wine or strong drink. He shall not drink any juice of grapes or eat grapes, flesh or dried, no raisins. Right? All the days of his separation he shall eat nothing that is produced by the grapevine, not even the seeds or the skins. All the days of his vow of separation no razor shall touch his head until the time is completed for which he separates himself to the Lord. He shall be holy. He shall let the locks of hair of his head grow all long. And all the days that he separates himself to the Lord, he shall not go near a dead body, not even for his father or his mother, brother or sister, if they die. He shall make himself unclean because of his separation to God, and it's on his head. All the days of his separation, he is holy to the Lord. So there's a bit more here about, what happens if you're around somebody and they just die suddenly, you make an offering and this and that. And at the end here, verse 21, this is law of the Nazirite, but if he vows an offering to the Lord above his Nazirite vow, as he can afford in exact accordance with the vow that he takes, then he shall do so in addition. So this didn't prevent you from serving God in additional ways. Like you weren't just locked into this Nazirite vow. Someone we think about Nazirite vow is somebody like John the Baptist, who lived his life basically in accordance with the Nazirite vow. We don't have a perfect reading on all of John's life. We know what he was commanded to do, and it seems like it's the Nazirite vow. It's a vow of separation, and his lasted quite a long time, his whole life. But as you can see, and I think I want to make a point on, even these Nazirite vows here in the Old Testament, which we don't do, there's a principle that we can draw out of it, but we don't do this exact Nazirite vow. It's not written to us. It's written to the people of Israel, coming out of Egypt, going through the wilderness, living in the promised land. These are the covenants and statutes which God set up with them, right? So the Nazirite vow didn't have to last their whole life. So somebody who drank wine before could then abstain from wine and raisins and everything else and not cut his hair or her hair. It could be for a man or a woman. Remember, the passage opens, if a man or a woman wants to do this. And this is a vow of volition. It's from the point of view of the person, not from the Lord. And so somebody can offer this lifestyle change to the Lord, this separation, this setting apart of oneself for God. The other thing is this has an end date. Sometimes I feel like people make some sort of religious change in their life, and then they're like terrified that if they stop, God will be mad at them. God told us through Jesus, don't make vows. But if you do vows, you better keep them, right? So don't make vows, first of all. But if you do set yourself apart for something, keep it. If you fail in it, then you need to fess up. And yeah, God be a little bit upset with you, but not condemning you to hell or anything. You got to put things in appropriate perspective. I remember in my own life, there was times when I was like, oh, I'm not going to do this or that for this amount of time, Lord. And some of those things are just so unrealistic. But there is a principle here. When you set yourself apart with a fast, okay, Jesus went out and fasted in the wilderness. When you set yourself apart away from something, okay, could be alcohol, could be this or that. Catholics tend to practice this around Lent. There are very positive things from having that level of self-control over your life to say no to something and yes to the Lord in its wake, right? In its absence of that activity or that stuff, to say yes to the Lord in those things. And even if you don't fill it with prayer and worship and Bible reading like you thought you would, if you continue to say no to those things and affirm that you're doing it with the heart towards the Lord, you are going to be more cognizant of your God than you were before. God will entertain you in those moments with opportunities that you may have been blind to in the past because those things were in your life. One thing that I've done in the past, and this is many, many years ago, I've not done this in a long time, but often, and these were times when I was very much filled with God in ways that are special. There's blessing to living an austere lifestyle for a period of time, setting oneself apart for God. I remember I would give up sleeping on my bed for a minute. You know, it would be maybe for a week or something. Just me, the floor, and the Lord. Guess what? It's hard to turn over and get another hour of sleep if you're on the floor. And it doesn't feel great to lay there and get an extra 40 winks, right? It's like when you're awake, it's time to get up. And when you're not feeling great laying there on the floor, you remember this world isn't your home. And you remember the Lord, and you call on the Lord, and you're like, Lord, I love you, giving this up for you, and it's time to get up. And you just start that day, right? There's no lazily hanging out, laying on the floor, especially in today's world, looking at your phone, scrolling. No doom scrolling in the morning when you're laying on the floor. Another thing that you can do, many people do, is they'll give up drinking. And many people give up drinking permanently. And that's a great thing if that's what you need to do. But if you do drink casually and you just want to take a break, that's always healthy, right? But don't just take a break just for health reasons. Take a break. And when you feel that desire to kind of fill the evening with a beer or two, you just go, no, you know what, Lord? Not tonight. It's for you. Love you. And you'll be surprised. God is going to intercede in those places. Now let's close. And I want to close with a blessing. The church I go to reads this, I think, almost every week. And a church I used to go would always do this. You're probably very familiar with it. Let's read it. Let's pick it up in verse 22 of chapter 6. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to Aaron and his sons, saying, Thus you shall bless the people of Israel. You shall say to them, The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. So shall they put my name upon the people of Israel, and I will bless them. May God richly bless you. Whether you've erred and sinned grievously against your spouse, an act of an adultery, or your heart is having a hell of a time forgiving somebody for doing that to you. If you're somebody who has made yourself set apart for a time, like a Nazirite vow, or not, God, may he richly bless you. May he be gracious to you. May he lift up his look, his countenance, right? The brightness of his gaze upon you. God bless you. And until next time, keep walking.